We are live once again. Historic Sim Racing Organization proudly presents round number 2 of the HSO 1971 F1 Series at Montjuic Park in Barcelona. I am Jason White. I'll be your commentator. I'm joined in the booth this evening by Alberto Ibañez and Scott Urick. Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening, everybody. Pleased to be here again.
Good evening, everyone, as well. Honored to be here.
So we've got a full broadcast booth here, a three-man team, and we're definitely going to need it today because this circuit, as you can see, lined with Armco. As we take a look at the track map, very, very dangerous, Alberto and Scott.
Yeah, it's certainly very dangerous because it's a street track, and the Armco is always there to take a big toll on anyone who is getting too close to it. But it's also at the same time a very quick track, and that's the basic difference with, for example, another street track near the sea, as is Monaco. Monaco is much slower than this. This is very fast, very dangerous, but also very exciting.
I think Scott... Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
It's very wide. It offers a great temptation to very many drivers to do something offline, which, as Alberto was saying, then the Armco comes back and bites.
There are a couple of places on this track that are iconic that some people will know. One of them is the part right before the hairpin where the car leaves the ground. If any of you have seen the documentary The Quick and the Dead, there's an iconic shot in that of cars going over that crest heading to the hairpin, and it's probably one of the best shots of Formula One action ever. I mean, every time I am bored or I'm just like, I'll just cue up that shot and look at it, and I'm just like, ah.
Yeah, exactly. It's those three iconic places where the cars have been jumping in history, and that's obviously the Nürburgring and the Flugplatz. You always see cars in the air.
Yes.
And then also at the Old Donington, there are some very nice shots of the pre-war Grand Prix cars there with all four wheels in the air. And this is the third one, the third place with where the cars would certainly take off.
All right.
The tricky part to that is it's right before the braking zone.
Exactly. Yeah,
so if your car does not plant when it comes down, you're in real trouble.
Yeah, you got to immediately, as soon as the car lands, you have to turn around and get ready for the next corner. You have to immediately get it settled and then go for that. So, so as we stand now, let's see what time we have here. Qualifying is over, and Richard Coxon is on the pole with Grant Riddall in second. So we're picking up where we left off in round number 1. The only difference is Grant Riddall this time has a TS9, I believe. So he's got the same equipment as his team leader, Richard Coxon.
Yes, they've battled for 2 hours in qualifying, one nipping the other back and forth. There'd be a Coxon had put up a hot lap, then Grant would go back and do his. The other thing to note is we have a British sweep in the first 3 positions.
That's true, we do. And look at Mikael Yannick in 4th place in the Ferrari there. He's only he's about 0.8 of a second back from Coxon, but Ferrari didn't figure in the results at South Africa. So this bodes well for them. They're being further up on the grid. And the first Lotus on the grid, Richard Wilkes, is in 5th place.
And what an irony, because everybody would think that the Ferraris would have been in their own playground in the big open Kyalami circuit where the power is so important, while the Agile Lotus would be here, the car to beat. But there you go. So was the driver affinity with the track.
Let's take a look really quickly at the point standings going into today's race. Currently, Richard Coxon leads the championship with 9 points because he won the last race, and this list basically reads as the finishing order of the previous race. Coxon 9 points, Grant Riddall 6 points, Jakob Fredriksson with 4, David Jakes 3, Martin Lucina 2, and Mikael Yannick with 1 point. The constructor standings are a bit abbreviated because of the rule of only one car of a certain make being able to score points, and you take the one that scored them the highest. So Surtees is 9 points, then March is 4, BRM 3 points, and Ferrari 1. So yeah, I mean, as we were saying about the circuit, I think definitely, as far as overtaking possibilities, the hairpin after the start-finish line would be one, and it's going to be interesting to see how the cars behave going through the sweeping sections, getting back to the start-finish line, because those are fast sections, and there could be an opportunity to maybe capitalize on someone's problem through there, maybe.
Yeah, very likely. I mean, it's a difficult section. As long as you get, as you stay in the racing line, everything is okay. But it's so quick, and the grip outside of that line is going to be lower, especially at the beginning of the race. That as soon as you get out of it, you're going to be having real trouble there, trying to go with the flow for the next turn.
Okay, so the cars are on track now for their final warm-up. We've got about 9 minutes to go until the start of the race. Looking now at the Matra of Yves Placé as he traverses first few sections. This is an outlap, so that's why he's looking particularly easygoing. But this is a very picturesque track. I mean, if I were to liken it to a track that I'm familiar with, it's kind of like Belle Isle in a way, because that's a street track and it's in a park, similar to this, where you have roads that just basically run around a public park. Less water, though, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very likely.
Back to what you guys were saying about the final sections of the track,
Yes.
particularly the third sector. Although it is very fast and very wide, it is a daunting combination of tightening and loosening radii around the corners. So the really fast drivers will have a line that will go inside, outside, inside, depending on whether it's a tight area or an open area. If you can do it flat out, it's fantastic. But if you don't hit that line correctly and find those apexes, as you will, where it's a little tighter, it can really catch a driver out.
Yeah, and I think on top of that, I mean, maybe you'd agree with me. I mean, we can have a look at it when Yves comes around here, but there aren't a lot of places to pick out a turn-in point. There aren't many landmarks there. As we look
there are not.
As we look at Yves right now, we're now on board with him with his Matra. He's through the. He's in the first sector. Apparently, he has some kind of damage already. That little icon in the corner of the screen that shows that he has some kind of a something he has to fix. Anyway, here he comes off of this corner by the restaurant, and now he's going to go into the section that we're talking about. Turns in here. Yeah, and if you look at it, it's just a continuous line of trees on both sides. There's not really anything that you can go, okay, I need to turn in here. There's no, and there's also no signs for that matter. There's no shutoff markers. So, yeah, well, there you've got a little gap in the trees. So you got one place there that you can use as a marker. But other than that, this could pose a problem, Scott, I think, if people get mental fatigue. Whoa!
Most definitely.
Coming into the pits late there. The other thing, I believe Alberto is warning people on the server itself. There is a pit lane speed limit in this track itself, which some people might not be expecting. So as long as, I mean, we're not anticipating people having to pit unless they have some kind of a problem, but just so people are aware that that's what's going on. That'd be a good thing. So Scott, what are your predictions for this race? Keeping in mind how things went down in South Africa, do you see a situation where the Surtees dominance continues, or do you think that this track, with all its Armco and the way that it is, could be an equalizer and get people on more equal footing?
Well, the Surtees dominance could very well continue based on just the way the intense amount of preparation that Coxon and Grant Riddall put into running these races, and now that they're in equal cars, however, if they decide to race each other, there could be some sort of mishap, and it could be wide open. And you just mentioned mental fatigue. This track will take 110% of your mental faculties, your concentration, just to keep it clean around here as fast as it is. So who knows? And I would say they by far would be the odds-on favorite, but it's racing. Anything happens.
Yeah, to reiterate, let me see here. So let me look at we have 27, 28, and 29. Those are the three surtees that are being run. Let me make sure I get this right, because I have a note sheet here that's been given to me by Mr. Coxon himself, so I'm able to keep apprised of exactly how the cars are updated. Yeah, 27's Coxon, and he has a brand new TS9 for this season. You start, and 28. The number 28 is Grant Riddall, and he now has a TS9 as well. The number 29 should still be a TS7. So those are the changes. One of the other changes that we'll note, and I'm looking at him right now, is Brian Janik. This is his first race using the Lobster Claw Brabham BT34. And you can guess why it's called the Lobster Claw, because of the very distinctive nose that it has. His teammate will still be using a BT33, the old style, but it will now be decked out in the green and yellow colors, not in the Lucky Strike livery that was run in round one. No changes at Ferrari, no changes at Lotus, no changes at Tyrrell, no changes at McLaren. The number 14 BRM is a new car, though. That's Steve Parker's car, so he gets to drive a shiny new BRM. Is he out here on track?
Which probably also counts for his so fantastic position in the grid.
There he is. Yes, he's making good use of it.
And speaking of predictions, Steve Parker could easily be the dark horse here, because he's a guy that he's very well known for being very much in control of what he does during the whole race. I mean, not the kind of guy who is pushing for the ultimate 10th in every lap, like for example Grant Riddall does. It makes you always more proud to air rods. In the case of Steve, he's always mentally very, very well prepared.
Yeah, Steve's a guy that unfortunately lately has been the victim of a lot of bad luck in a lot of series, and I'm not just talking about his last outing in this series. I'm talking about last year. There were several races that really he got involved in incidents that were no fault of his own, and it's a shame, because when Steve does have good luck, when things do go his way, he is a very, very good driver. One of our best. One
of the reasons he doesn't have more wins in his statistics is that as a true gentleman that he is, he usually picks or is happy to get from the admins cars that are not really the most competitive in the field.
Yeah, he that is the case a lot of the time. But whoa, there's Janik spinning out briefly in the Lobster Claw Brabham. But yeah, it'll be interesting because. I mentioned this earlier, but I do think that this track is an equalizer, and it will show who has the best racecraft. And it's not necessarily going to go to the guy who has the fastest car. So we have 1 minute to go now until the end of the warm-up here, and we'll go through the grid as they go around in their reconnaissance lap.
This could very well be Steve's day. I do think, as Alberto said, I do believe he is a dark horse. I didn't see him get a completely clean lap in qualifying, so he may be sitting on more speed than he has shown thus far. Another driver I'd like to mention, making his Virgin event start, would be Mick Chapman in that third Surtees. He's only had this title or platform for a couple weeks, and he's only had a week to get used to driving any of these F1 cars.
Yes, Mick is the third driver for Team Surtees this weekend. Yeah, this is definitely going to be a steep learning curve for him since Peter Blom cannot be here. He's taking over the car, and he hasn't had a lot of time. But Mick's a fast learner, so we'll see how he does.
He's also a very prudent driver. He will be driving for certainly not at 10/10s, but instead trying to not cause any problems to anybody and be there with a steady driving to the end.
All right, so we're going to be moving to the race session in just a moment here. While we have a second, I want to point out a couple of things coming up at HSO. Obviously, Can-Am is coming back at some point here, and that point being March 25th, which is 2 weeks away. Can-Am Watkins Glen, and then we also have one of our Gold Star events coming up soon, which is going to be the Jaguar Challenge Spa. We tried to do this race once before. It didn't quite work. We're going to give it another shot this year. I think everybody agrees that that's going to be fun because we really enjoyed those cars. All right, so here we are on the starting grid. And let me go to the head of the grid here. I'm going to run through the cars as they go around on their pace lap. So on the pole for this race, we have Richard Coxon in Team Surtees number 27. In second, he's not on the grid yet, but he is in second, Grant Rudall, there he goes, in the number 28 Surtees. And we're doing a 3-2-3-2 start here, so that means Steve Parker is lining up on the front row in his BRM. Starting fourth, Michael Yannick in the Ferrari. Fifth is Richard Wilkes in the first of the Lotus cars. Sixth, Martin Lucina in the March Engineering Alfa Romeo-powered car. Here we go off on the formation lap. Seventh is Jonathan Asser-Clint in the first of the Tyrrells. Eighth is Peter Hlavik in the first of the McLarens. Ninth, Ray Rudall in his BRM. 10th, Jakob Fredriksson in the second March, this one powered by a Ford. 11th, Brian Janik in the Lobster Claw Brabham BT34. 12th is Yves Placé in the first of the Matra cars. Note the different front wing in this race. 13th is his teammate, David Saber. 14th, Greg Guassin in the older Brabham BT33. 15th, David Jakes. 16th, Dana Schurer in the CMG Racing March. 17th, Gerard Rion in the second Ferrari. 18th, Juha Boss in the second Lotus. 19th, David Yunt in the Joe Seifert Automobiles March. 20th, Jason Whitehead in the first of the Frank Williams Racing Cars, March 701. 21st, Philippe Martinelli in the second Tyrrell. 22nd, Mick Chapman in the third Surtees car. 23rd, Raul Ureb in the Curie Arnold March 701. 24th, Simon Watman making a surprise appearance here in a March. 25th, Francois Remin in the second McLaren. 26th, Jason Fitch driving the brand new March, actually, for Frank Williams. This is a 711 March. And that is your grid, 26 cars. So we're coming up now to the line. Cars are coming through the tree line section, and very soon here we will have a start.
And this reduced number of cars was an attempt to keep safety under control, but
yes,
as we know in real life it didn't work so well. One of the worst accidents of the era happened here. Many spectators were unfortunately killed in a crash by Ralf Stommelen, I think it was.
Yeah, in fact, our trivia question has to do with the safety aspect of this circuit. We'll get to that later, as the cars are now lining up in the grid. And again, as we mentioned before, we have a 3-2-3-2 starting order here, which means we have three cars lining up in the front. One car heading for the pit lane.
Oh, with no nose cone.
It's David Saber. David Saber needs repairs. He had an incident on the circuit. We didn't see it, but he's going to have to start from the pit lane. So that's a huge development already, and we haven't even seen a green light. So the cars are still pulling up to the grid now. You can see them filing in the back there. On the pole, Richard Coxon in the middle. On the front row, you have Grant Riddall, and then you have Steve Parker on the outside. So, start is imminent. Stand by. And the race is underway. Great getaway by Richard Coxon. Gets away slightly faster than...
Whoa. Richard Wilkes and Steve Parker. Steve didn't notice that he was there side by side.
Oh, my goodness. Here they come down to the hairpin. Let's see if everybody gets through okay. Coxon leads. Look at all these cars going through the hairpins.
More wide there.
Yeah, it's just incredible. But everybody seems to have gotten through okay. Yes, Coxon leads. Grant Riddall in second. And yes, you're right. Richard Wilkes all the way up to third place on that start. Excellent for Team Lotus. And Steve Parker in fourth place. They come through the first sector here. So it's like we picked up where we left off with...
Greg Wasson just overtook David Jackson in a great maneuver there in one of the braking zones. And I believe we will be hearing a lot from Greg Wasson in this race.
Here he is.
The track being there an equalizer, as you say. Racecraft being so much a deciding factor here. Well, Greg has both of that in spades. So,
well, here he goes. He's going to try to overtake Raul Ureb, I believe. Yeah, and oh, there's a slight contact there. Careful, guys. Slap 1 of 75.
That's exactly what we were saying in the warm-up. I mean, the track is wide, but the racing line is only 1 because it goes so fast whipping around. He made it stick, though.
So Coxon comes across the line, completes lap number 1. Goes over the jump. There you go. You saw just real quickly there how the car gets light. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, there was a slight error, and Grant Riddall's trying to benefit from it. But there around the outside, it's not possible.
Yep. Well, I got to say, everybody's being very careful in these opening laps. I mean, I don't see many people doing silly stuff.
Yes, the rear of the field got away cleanly.
Oh, we've got a race control penalty for David Saber. Apparently, he exited the pits with too much speed, and he's going to have to come through again. That's really unfortunate.
Understandably nervous, probably.
Yeah.
To not lose any more time.
Oh, and we have a change of position at the front. Grant Riddall has taken the lead. Let's see if we got a replay of that.
And Michal Janak must have done a very bad start because he has fallen to 10th position and is now under attack from Greg Wasson.
Yeah, right there. He overtook him going up the small hill towards the right-hander. Just happened to just... And now that they're running similar equipment, I mean, we talked to them after their race in South Africa, and these guys generally had team orders, well, not team orders, but a team understanding that if one was faster than the other, they weren't going to fight. So we'll see if that comes into play. I mean, Richard now closing
in the lead now.
Yes, he is. Richard's now closing up on him again. So we'll have to see how this goes. Running order right now after 3 laps, or 2 laps now. We're on the 3rd lap. Grant Riddall first, Richard Coxon is second, Richard Wilkes third, Jacob Fredrickson is in 4th place.
And Greg Wasson is putting up a fight with Michal Janak there. He really wants that position. I think part of the problem is that Michal is being a bit hampered by Juha Boss, who is probably going slightly slower. And that means that Greg is able to put a lot of pressure on Michal.
Yeah, Mikael Janek, I got to say, I'm not too surprised. Oh, he just got tapped from behind by Greg Wasson, and Greg gets by. I'm sure that was not deliberate, but man, that's a difficult way to lose a position.
That's a bit touring car racing.
Yeah, Mikael Janek, he's a very quick driver, but does not have the quickest of starts, so I'm not surprised to see him slip all the way down to where he is right now. But I wouldn't count him out for later in the race, because there's going to be attrition. People are going to have issues, and we saw what happened at Kyalami. He just rose through the ranks and ended up taking 1 point for 6th. I would be surprised.
He's very cool-minded.
Yeah,
very
he-
cold-blooded. And look at that, because Greg wasn't just past him, and he didn't get mad at all.
No,
I
he
mean,
didn't.
Kept his cool, and is there right behind him.
He knows that it's a long race, and he's not going to do anything
Blown
silly.
engine, blown engine.
Oh, we have a blown engine.
Gerard Riam.
It's Gerard Rian's blown his engine. My goodness. So there's our first retirement, and it's engine related. Oh, here's look at that. Greg going up the inside, overtaking Richard Wilkes.
Jonathan apparently just crashed. Jonathan is out of the race, and he's in a very bad place in a fast section of the track.
Oh my goodness.
See, because I think that his car is moving slightly. Now he was able to quit.
All right, here's the replay. Oh my goodness, did he get hit from behind there? Because he just suddenly just turned around. Let's see what happened here. Yes, he was hit by, I believe that was Dana Schurer.
Yeah,
Yes.
Dana was protecting his
Yeah,
position from right Riddle, and there's many cars there in the same part of real estate. They were fighting for the same position, almost all of them.
Yeah, suddenly that hairpin's very busy because you've got that accident that's happening
Dana
there.
lost control. Dana lost control after the jump, and that's what made her hit Jonathan behind. What an unfortunate thing.
So, with that drama concluded, Grant is still out in front. But yeah, the driver that's on the move is Greg Guassin.
Yeah, he is disposed already of what was that? Just overtook.
One of the McLarens, but I don't believe that was for position.
No, I mean for Juha Boss, who was holding him up, him and Michal Janak. And indeed, Michal has not been able to overtake Juha yet. And that's the reason that Greg has been able to open a gap that quickly.
Meanwhile, we've got Lucina in a tense battle here with, I believe that is Yves Placé, yes. And it looks like Yves might be holding him up slightly.
Yeah,
This-
Yves has been ill this week. It was almost a last-minute confirmation that he would be making the race.
Ooh, man, very close. This is an interesting engine matchup, too. This is the Alfa Romeo versus the V12 Matra.
Yeah, in terms of power, Yves has all the advantage there. But this being a street track, even if it's open, the agility of the March is certainly much better than the big, heavy Matra here.
Even with the T-tray wing?
I think so. I believe that each of them has an advantage in a different part of the track. There you see Yves powering uphill.
Yeah, this
and
is...
letting-
Whoa!
that's obvious. But now we will see that in this twisted section, I'm betting that Martin Lacina will be able to put some pressure on him.
Well, he's really going to want to get ahead of him soon because, as you see, Greg and other people are closing in on behind. Yeah, there they come. So it won't be long before this becomes a four-car battle, I think.
Yeah, Martin has to act quickly because otherwise he will be distracted trying to fend off Greg Wasson, and that will eliminate any chances he has of overtaking Yves.
So, Scott, if you're in a situation like this where you have a guy that's hounding you, I mean, really, how do you keep focused on what's happening in front of you while at the same time defending from an attack behind you?
Well, you do the Italian thing and don't look in your mirror.
I suppose that's one approach. Yeah.
That's one approach, and the other is it is so early in the race. You continue to practice this guy and possibly fall into a mistake, or in this case, especially Yves can't necessarily let Martin go because then he'll be jumped by two more cars. But it looks now like Yves is going to use the power and pull out a little bit.
Yeah,
It
it's
is
definitely
very
what
hard.
definitely what you have to do is obviously in this part of the track in those places.
Oh, man, look out.
Look at that.
Oh, and there's contact. Greg got in really deep in that corner and ended up getting hit in the side by, my goodness, that was a bit of a, let's take a look, a
We should
replay of
say
that.
both Martin Lasina and Greg Wasson are probably the two latest breakers in the league.
Yeah, I mean, that was late breaking. Here's the replay. He comes down.
I think Greg would have made it very well, but the problem is that Yves had been hampering Martin Lasina's braking, and it surprised Greg, very probably. I think that both Martin and Greg would have been able to brake later, but Martin was hampered by Yves, and that's the reason that Greg miscalculated the situation.
Well, Greg is now up to 7th place.
Greg is spectacular as always.
Well, yeah, Greg is one of these guys who drives qualifying laps every lap.
Jason, that's another approach to how you just let the 3 cars behind you start to fight, and hopefully that gives you a gap.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in situations before where...
Oh, I think that Martin bruised there the wall slightly.
Just a tiny bit?
Yeah, and he was rejected to the opposite side, but fortunately he was able to control the car. And that could probably indicate that there is a bit of damage from the contact with Greg.
It wasn't an incredible hit. It was just like a small bump. But yeah, it's true. There's a chance that he could be. My goodness.
Greg goes in deep again.
See now. Oh man.
Try.
Now the other question here we have to think about is tires. If Greg is going to drive the entire race like that, I would venture to say that he's not going to be able to go the whole race on those tires. What do you guys think?
Yeah, these tires are very hard, but still, that's a very impressive amount of beating that Greg is giving them.
Well, the other thing to consider is that Greg didn't make it very far in the first race, so he really, whereas other people finished the South African Grand Prix, he doesn't have a whole hell of a lot to go on in terms of experience of how far he can go in a set of tires. So, my concern watching him now is that the amount of beating he's giving them, they're not going to last 75 laps.
It's also, since that's his first full race,
yes,
it's also that he isn't that familiar, for example, with the track build-up and with the flat spots and all that. And I think by now it's probable that his tires have already some flat spots.
Well, he is closing in on Yves now, so Yves basically got a reprieve from oh man, you can hear an over-rev there as he missed a shift. So that's another thing we got to watch. Lots of shifts in this race, and people are going to have to be careful to not overlap. Oh, we've got
with the
Wilkes is
gearbox.
around.
Yes, we've got a yellow flag in the hairpin here. Richard Wilkes apparently had some kind of an issue, and he's dropped to 5th place. Steve Parker is up to 4th, and Jacob Fredrickson's up to 3rd.
And Greg really wants to get rid of it.
Yes, here it is. Here it is on replay. He spun going into the hairpin itself. So that's probably one of those situations, again, of going over that rise. And like Scott said in the open, you know, if you don't have the car settled exactly right when you go into that hairpin, it could be a problem. If it's pitched one way, the other, just a little bit. Doesn't even have to be much.
My God, Greg Wasson is really close to his place at all points.
And he's got Peter Hlavik right behind him as well.
Yeah.
So it's really a 3-car battle, yeah.
The impressive thing, look at that, is how...
Oh, there's contact!
Yeah.
Yes, Yves got into the inside wall and...
I was about to say that he's timing the situation so far perfectly, but they're going in a very big risk. Because if he doesn't time it perfectly, he's so close there is no room for error.
Well,
that's exactly what happened there.
Hlavik is the one who temporarily at least benefits from that situation. Now he's got Greg counterattacking as they come to the start-finish line. That's 10 laps complete, or 9 actually. Now they're on their 10th lap.
I would say right now, at the rate these 3 are going...
Oh, look out.
It might be the better part of Fowler in this case for Yves to back off and let the other 2 through, because...
Yeah, because in the end it's going to be a danger for Yves itself.
Yes.
They are going to sooner or later take him out.
All right, so Greg has just now... Greg overtook going into the hairpin there, Hlavik, so he's back looking at the 2 oil coolers of Yves Placé.
Right, on his gearbox.
Absolutely on his gearbox. And realizing that he's losing time to the... all right, looks like he's going to try to overtake him here. Up the inside, Yves lets him go. Eves has probably got a bit of damage
very,
now.
Very experienced drivers and have been racing lots of years together, and it shows.
And Eves drops another place there. Peter Hlavik goes past, and he's going to maybe drop a third place as Lucina now wants to get on. Lucina wants to join the party now. So
Hlavik was able to overtake because Eves lost momentum coming out of the corner after letting Greg pass. That was the main reason.
So the elevator's going down for the Matra team in this race. This has been a bad couple of rounds for the Matra team so far. I mean, David Saber already having his issues before the race even starts here, and now Eves is having issues keeping pace with those around him. Although he is fending off Martin Lucina here just a little bit. Oh, and we have another retirement. Ray Radal is out of the race. Not sure what happened there.
Yes, I had noticed a while back that David Jakes had gotten by him in the lesser of the BRMs.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's too bad because Ray had an excellent outing at South Africa. Was able to, well, at least up until the very end before he had some issues with the stewards. But he's definitely quick in that BRM, so that's unfortunate that he's out this early.
And if you get close enough with the image to Greg's car, you will see that the nose is completely bent. Now he has his own version of the lobster claw.
That's true, and he has and he has more than just that. He's got, look at that, Peter Hlavik coming up the inside, going through the sweepers. But
and Peter has also his own version.
Say it again. I'm sorry.
Martin just got around Eves. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, that was bound to happen eventually, but finally. You can see right there how the cars drift through these sweeping sections, and it's really, you have to have a feather touch on the wheel, or a feather touch on the throttle, I mean, through that section, because you can't, like, these are definitely not point and shoot cars. You have to be very, very careful. And here's Greg locking up his tires again, and he lets he's having trouble getting the power down there. He lets Hlavik go up a place. So I think you have to now ask yourself, okay, are we already starting to see difficulties for Greg from cooking his tires too much? Maybe he needs to cool it for a second.
Just back a little bit. U-Haul Boss is just climbing all over David Jakes.
Yeah, David Jakes, who's driving the number 16 BRM.
User joined your channel.
As we are joined by Jonathan Asserclinth. Jonathan, we saw what happened heading down to the hairpin there. Looks like you were the innocent party in that incident. Tell us your version.
From the looks of what happened, I think I lifted a little bit right on the crest just to avoid running into the back of the guy in front, and from what it felt like bad reading of how I would take the crest or something, the guy behind me didn't lift at all and flew longer than me, so had no way of avoiding me once they landed.
Yeah, it was Dana Schurer just behind you who, and it looked like it was just a miscommunication of where the braking zone would be. But we've already seen several incidents in this race of people losing control after that crest. Because when the car comes down, if it's not placed exactly properly the way it should be, it's very easy to lose control.
Yeah, well, I'm not apportioning any blame. It was just one of those racing incidents. I'm very disappointed that I don't get to show my racecraft around here. But hey, on to the next one.
And we have we've been alerted to the fact that Greg Wassin has gone up one position now. Again, yeah, so yes, he is back.
Very daring,
he's.
back.
Let's take a look. Well, I think it's a bit too far back to see it now, but Hlavik is not going to take this lying down. He's particularly fast in these sweeping sections. Let's see if he's able to get.
These two cars are quite evenly matched, and in any case, the combination of the driver and car, they are very evenly matched. So even if Greg is able to overtake, he doesn't seem to be able to shake off Peter. So this looks like a situation we had with Grant Riddle and in the Can-Am series. with
Yeah.
Grant Riddle and Austin Ogonaski that gave us some of the best driving and battles so far this year.
And look, he's going to come up the inside here, try to outbrake him going into the hairpin. Let's see if he can get it done. No. And he gets it done. He was counting on Greg having the issue that he has been having in that corner. He just can't get the power down cleanly. Here's Greg trying to counterattack, and another, he's going to take it right back again. Look at that.
Oh, fantastic.
That's fantastic, because
He saw the gap and he immediately got it.
that's the nice thing about having that hairpin immediately following that one, is if you can be really well placed to counterattack if you get off of that corner reasonably well, and that's exactly what he did.
All this is going to be very tolling for the concentration of drivers. I mean, just picture yourself doing this 2 hours long.
Yeah, we've still got 60 laps to go, 6-0. So, when I practice in these cars occasionally. Oh, here he goes. He's going to go up the inside. He takes another look. He's alongside, but then, of course, here comes this next right-hander, and he has to back off. So it's the cadence of these turns that in many ways determines whether you go forward or not.
We won't see many drivers who are able to do that centimeters away and get away with it cleanly.
Well, these are two of the best we have. I mean, Guasen, obviously, and Hlavik really, ever since the Czech invasion of 2015 or 16 has really established himself as a consistently fast driver.
Oh my God, there he goes again.
Again, up to the crest, trying the outside this time. I don't think he's going to be able to get that to work, although let's see. Greg smokes the tires, but gets a much better launch off the corner that time. He wasn't as vulnerable.
How Greg was very, very much in control of the situation. He saw very well where Greg was, where Peter was placed. Oh yeah, and he was able to get himself out of the way, so that Peter had enough room, even if being on the outside. But I think that by now Greg has the hang of it and knows that outside of the racing line there is not as much grip. So he stuck to the inside, and by the time he was at the apex, he knew he had the advantage.
Let's give everybody a running order real quickly here. As we stand with about coming up now to lap 15 completed. Grant Riddle leads the race by 2.5 seconds over his teammate, Richard Coxon. Third is Jakob Fredriksson, which is 20 seconds back from the lead. And Steve Parker is in fourth place. Fifth, after that incident he had by the hairpin, is Richard Wilkes. Sixth, you're watching right now, Greg Guasin, with Peter Hlavik in seventh place. Eighth is Martin Lucena in the March Alfa Romeo. Ninth is Yves Placé. So he's not completely out of it yet, even though he's been slipping down the order. And 10th is David Jakes.
So Greg is in the points point position, in the sixth position. And this, we know, this first, third, and sixth are certainly always a
race control drive-through penalty for Raul Ureb. Well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Penalty for Raul Ureb. He probably was in the pits.
Yep.
Oh, been a little further back. He continues to fade a little. Now he has David Jakes on him.
My goodness. Yes, David Jakes, who finished fourth at the South African Grand Prix. Oh, we now have Raul Ureb out of the race, unfortunately. So that's 4 retirements. David Saber is the last car running, but that's to be expected because he started from the pit lane. He's actually a lap down, but that, we'll see if he's able to pick up any positions as the race progresses. But this is, Yves now.
I don't mean to interrupt, but
no, that's all right.
In 11th, Juha Bos is leading a 5-car battle.
Yeah, Juha in the second Lotus, who actually, he didn't really have that great of an outing at all in at South Africa. He was out almost like after the race started, and then had several penalties from exiting the pits. But here comes Brian Janik looking to get by him, going up the inside, and he's through. Brian Janik in Lobster Claw goes up into 11th place. But here's a chance for these guys to counterattack, and they do. There goes Juha up the inside, takes the position back.
Nicely done, Juha.
Yes, very, very well executed. Now will Janik try to take him back? No, Brian's not going to do that.
There was Michel Janak there looking for the gap, but he had to back off when Brian closed the door.
Oh boy, we've got the commentator's worst nightmare now. Yannick and Janik right together. Yannick overtakes Janik. Susie sells seashells by the seashore.
I was waiting to pronounce both of them
Well,
first.
I'm a friend of Brian's, actually. Brian lives in Detroit, just like I do, and we hang out occasionally. It's Janik, so you just pronounce it like it looks phonetically. So if I say Janik with a J, that means Brian. If I say Yannick, then that's Mikael Yannick.
Oh, you can say Janik and the other
Yes.
guy.
Yeah.
Those two guys.
Yeah, those two guys. So now, Mikael Yannick, he's right up with Juha now, so this will be an interesting chance to see if the 12 cylinders can compete with a car as lightweight as the Lotus with better handling probably than the Ferrari does. Yellow flag in the hairpin here. We got a car that's off.
Outside.
It looks like a march.
It's Simon Watman.
It's Simon Watman, yes.
But that was enough for Juha Boss to back up a bit, just for safety reasons, and Michel Janak, it only took a split second for him to go for the gap and get the position.
That brings up an interesting question, though. I don't know if this is the way things work in Automobilista, but do you, if you overtake in a yellow zone, is there a penalty assessed?
I'm not sure about
Yeah, I
it.
don't know. That'd be a question I would like to answer before the next race, because had that been a typical racing situation and you see a yellow flag, I mean, the general rule is that you do not overtake in those conditions. So,
Right.
so even if he had an opportunity,
Ferrari.
yeah. Well,
Greg Wasson has already caught Richard Wilkes. And he's putting some pressure on him.
all right, this should be interesting because these are two guys that are very, very determined when you get them in a corner and they have to fight their way out of it. These two will not back down. So something's got to give. And we can guess that Richard Wilkes is running with damage at this point,
Yeah.
considering what he's been dealing with.
Is not far behind also.
That's the really
Oh
interesting.
no, David Yates just crashed.
Oh no! Oh goodness, and we have Eves has lost his front wing, so he's holding up a whole train of cars here. So he's going to have to try to get back to the pits and get that fixed. So the dismal day for Matra continues.
Greg Wasson almost lost it there, powering out of the corner. Peter Lavak was able to get by. And Richard Wilkes gets some room to go.
Oh man! Greg just stays ahead of Peter Hlavik. So, yeah, this is. I think this is really interesting that Hlavik is not falling back here, and I think the comparison that you guys had of these two drivers, but also the fact that they're both running similar sort of equipment. And when I say sort of, I mean that they're both running year-old vehicles. I think they're not running state-of-the-art equipment.
Yeah, I think.
No, that's what I just looking at the replay of Place and Jakes. Seems that they ran over a back marker, and I think right there at the jump before the hairpin, and it looks like Eves got crossed up, and David Jakes collected him.
Wow. So that part of the track is turning out to be the real issue for a lot of people. We all thought going in it would be the Armco throughout the rest of the track, and it turns out it's really just a road surface situation that's catching a lot of people out.
Ooh.
Greg bounces off the Armco there, but it looked like it was just a glancing blow as he kept going. Just skimmed it, so hopefully that didn't cause him any damage. Yeah, so Wattman's out of the race. We also have Francois Remen has retired for some reason. We didn't see that. And we also have David Jakes now officially out of the race, which is unfortunate. We didn't physically see what happened there, but
Greg is really having to wheel the car around, because I'm watching from his cockpit position and he's constantly working at the steering wheel. There is no moment of rest here.
Well, these two are still, these two are still closing up on Wilkes, so we'll have to see what happens. Meanwhile,
he's in the most uncomfortable position in the track right now. I can tell you that.
Okay, well, meanwhile, Fitch has got a drive-through penalty now. Although I will say this, Jason is still running at this point. He hasn't had good luck so far in this series, but the fact that he ran into a stalled vehicle on the start of South Africa, so even where he is now, this is an improvement, right, Scott?
There goes Greg.
Oh, much improved.
So
he has passed Richard Wilkes now.
Yes, he just got by. Let's have a look at the replay of this. Yeah, they're coming through the section just after the two hairpins. This is a replay. Oh yes, Richard Wilkes had a problem getting the power down there, and that's what let him caused him to give up the position. And Greg just was there to.
Even the slightest error when you have Greg behind you.
Yeah, Greg was right there, ready to capitalize, and he did.
This is what Greg's been waiting on. He's had Peter just all over him while he's been waiting. Other cars.
No, that's a good point, because now he's got a buffer between himself and Peter. And this is not a. In other cases, they were cars that were either lame or a back marker. And this, this is a different situation than what they've had before. Hlavic's not going to find it easy to dispense with Wilkes and get back in contact with Greg.
Wow, that right-hander! I mean, he literally rubbed the letters off the tires.
Well, it's tempting in that corner to take it faster than you should. It's very tempting. But you really should not, because for the exact reason that you pointed out, Scott, is that you immediately run those left wheels against the barrier, and if you're lucky, all you'll do is just paint Goodyear or Firestone on the thing, and that'll be it. But a few more inches and you're losing a front wing or maybe a wheel.
And also one of the problems that with the turns at this track is that there are many combinations of left-right turn. So there's many situations where you could go actually much quicker through one of the turns, but the problem is you are then wrongly positioned for the next one. And
exactly.
You pay for it dearly.
Mm-hmm. So we're coming up now to 1/3 distance in the race. This is a 75-lap contest. This battle between Greg and Wilkes and Place seems to have leveled off a bit. Although now it looks like, just as I say that, now it looks like it's heating up again with Hlavik trying to find a way by Wilkes.
And Richard Wilkes being the creator of the physics and always having been taking well care of the realism of the tires and the flat spot and all that.
There's the yeah, he got it. There's the overtake, but of course now he's lost all kinds of ground to Guassin.
I'm betting that Richard Wilkes will now have the eyes as big as balls when he's seeing what Greg is doing with those tires with no penalty at all.
Are you predicting an update?
I'm sure that depends on how Greg Guassin ends the race. I think that he will get the bill later in the race.
I'm going to leave that one right there and not touch that one. But he's certainly making the most of a year-old car, making a fool out of the updates that other people have. Here comes Lacina through. Lacina comes into the action, trying to overtake.
Just trying to make room for Peter Lavak.
Yep, there he goes.
And there goes the other late breaker of the league.
That's right. So now, in just a short few minutes, Richard Wilkes has gone from being in the points to being out of the points.
Yeah.
So it's not the greatest of situations for him.
So it's almost as if he misshifted into reverse gear.
And Lavak is coming back strongly on Poisson.
Yeah, now that he's dispensed with Wilkes, now he's catching back up again. I think it's fair to say that it could be down to tires, it could be something else, but look at how quickly he's closing on him. His car is clearly in better trim than Greg. And that's saying a lot, because Greg's been sensational.
Yeah, but as we usually say, getting there is one thing and overtaking is a very different.
Well, he's already shown that he can do it. The question is, can he stay there? And I think we could both, I think the three of us could probably agree that he's been kinder to his tires so far than Greg has. So he may have more in reserve as he takes a slight look up the inside, thinks better of it.
I think that the reason that we are seeing so much smoke out of Greg's tires are the flat spots. He probably has tires with a lot of flat spots, and that means you get ever more locking situations and ever more smoke, and this is a self-feeding situation where the tires get worse very quickly.
Well then,
I had a question, but I just answered it for myself.
yeah.
Not forgetting that if we're talking about 5th and 6th here, I looked up front at Grant Radal running up front, and it's like, well, with an 11-second lead, is he backed off? Nope, he's still turning hot laps. I don't. He doesn't have a dimmer switch. It's just on or off.
It's interesting that you mentioned that gap, though, because it does seem to accordion back and forth. Like, as I look at it right now, it's about 7 seconds, and if you look at it again in a bit, it's like about 10 or so. So it's seesawing back and forth based on where they are on the track. Mm-hmm. All right, here's Hlavik looking on the outside here. He's tried a variety of different ways to attempt to pass here, trying on the outside.
I think he's rather going for a good power out of the
yeah, he's thinking about
corner. Yeah, not as much as doing it on the brakes, but on the following corner, getting a good run to it.
Oh! Let's see. Oh, well, he's not really well placed there, but man, oh, Greg loses it, and Hlavik goes up, and there you go. It was as simple as just losing purchase on one of those turns, and that's all it took. Now, Greg has got to deal with Wilkes, who's found new life.
With Lacina.
Oh, Lacina, I'm sorry. Yeah. I saw a red flash there, and I thought it was him, but no, you're right. Wilkes is further back.
Yeah, and this is going to be a late-breaking duel.
Probably. Meanwhile, it appears that I thought Wilkes had damage on his nose. He does not, so...
Well, look at Peter Lavak's nose. That's no longer a lobster, but the Millennium Falcon, actually.
Oh, goodness. Oh, that's right. You can see it. There's a big, giant dent there.
Greg has it, too.
Yeah, that's true.
The scar from the butt. Let's see what happens to that very nice high wing that Martin Lacina spots once he starts his fight with Greg.
It does appear that there are some closer battles that could be developing just ahead of this group. My timing and scoring chart shows that the time between Fredrickson and Coxon is diminishing. It's only like 3 or so seconds. So, and there's Greg. That time he made contact with the inside wall, or the inside Armco, and the second hairpin. So now Lacina gets by. And Greg spins again. Oh, and now, well, that's it. He's done it
There's
now.
the tire.
There's the tire, and there's the retirement. My goodness. Well, let's take a look at, since we caught it, let's take a look at this.
Unfortunately, Richard Wilkes nudged the wall in his attempt to avoid Greg's car.
There you see he has the first impact, and Lucina gets by here. Greg has to make room, and as he comes out, he tries to get in the power, and right there, the car spins around again, and then he impacts the inside wall. So, yeah, there was a bit of contact there with the cars going by, but that's really unfortunate for Greg. I think it's a case of he was pushing the car too hard, too early, and the chickens came home to roost, so to speak. He just, it appears his tires were just cooked.
And I think Greg is now much wiser regarding this mod, because he has seen that, well, charging that way means you will be paying a very high bill later in the race, and not as late as maybe he could have thought. It happened before half the race.
So I'm gonna show a static view here from the sweepers. Here comes the leader of the race through, Grant Riddall, about to complete 27 laps. We're waiting for his teammate, Richard Coxon, who's 11 seconds back. Here he comes. That's Coxon. Next should be Jakob Fredriksson. There he is. We're waiting for Steve Parker now. It's quite a distance back to Steve. There he is now in the red helmet. And then next would be Peter Hlavik, Lucina, and Wilkes. And that's a large gap. We don't see them for a while yet. Okay, here's Hlavik. And there's Lucina. And then Wilkes. There he is. All right. Oh, and Wilkes gets out of shape and looks like he might have contacted the barrier there.
I think that his car is damaged already from some laps ago. That's likely the reason that he has been touching the walls repeatedly.
Here's the replay.
Where you would not expect it.
Coming out of this corner, here's where it happens. This next one, I believe. Yeah, he lifts off and he has to correct. My goodness. Oh, he didn't touch the wall, so he was really lucky there. Yeah, he seems to be okay now, but he's definitely suffering from a lack of grip at the back.
That's likely the effect of the fuel getting burned. It's probable that the Lotus is having problems with that situation, with center of gravity changing too much.
Mm-hmm. So 30 laps we're coming up on now. So it's turning out to be, I guess, what we would expect as far as the engines go. We're in a situation where the highest placed 12-cylinder car is Steve Parker. We were thinking that
half the race and half the field gone.
Yeah. So we'll have to see if well, Steve now is starting to close in on. Oh, that's actually Mick Chapman in the third Surtees.
I think Peter Hlavik is leaving also lots of rubber marks and lots of smoke in the turns, and this probably indicates that in his fight with Greg Wasson he also toasted his tires. His car seems to be badly out of shape coming out of the corners, and I think that it's only a matter of time until Martin Lucina gets him.
Yeah, but Lucina is a little ways back, and this is a good chance for Peter to at least try to drive a bit cleaner and preserve his rubber a little bit. So at least he doesn't have someone breathing down his neck immediately. But I agree. If he's not careful before he knows it, Lucina will be right there.
Well, just as you two say that, yes, I've noticed. I've been watching Peter myself. He's very skaty on his tires, right there, for instance. He's doing beautiful four-wheel drifts through the last.
That's a good one right there.
Probably not voluntarily.
No.
No, not voluntarily. But the other thing I was just going to say, he needs to be careful because I noticed him tapping the Armco in several places around the track. This is the first lap he's actually done cleanly.
Well, while we have a moment, let's introduce the trivia question, everybody. And the trivia question for this race. In 1975, which team principal, out of concern for safety, personally checked Armco bolts on the Montweek circuit? Was it A, Colin Chapman, B, Ken Tyrrell, or C, Don Nichols? And Scott is disqualified from answering this question because he already knows the answer.
I would say floorball.
So everybody have a think about that, as Johnny Aces would say, and we will come back and give you the answer later on in the broadcast. So this is turning out to be a very different situation than we had in South Africa in terms of Grant Riddall just opening up a huge gap to his teammate. Well, not totally huge. It's like 8 seconds right now. The distance between the first four cars is relatively even, and there's not a lot of competition going on there as far as direct contact. So the question becomes: will fatigue, physical, mental, or both, become an issue at some point?
Well, I think all these drivers are top drivers, and they are very able to drive the full Grand Prix distance with no problems. And especially in the case of Grant Riddle and Richard Coxon, who are cruising relatively calmly there at the front. They don't have any especially stressing situations like you had in the battle between Greg and Peter and all that. So I believe Richard is also starting to run with a calculator in his mind, because he is championship leader at this point. And he, I don't remember right now, Grant Riddle finished second, last race. So they could be both at the top of the championship right now, and there is still almost half the race to go, and they are not going to get into trouble for that.
Race control penalty for David Saber.
Yeah, he was in the pits some moments ago.
Oh.
So it seems that the pit speed limit again caught someone.
And meanwhile, we've got a battle developing here between Brian Janik and Richard Wilkes. Lobster Claw versus Lotus Cosworth. And it appears that if I were putting money on somebody, it would be Janik at this point, because his car seems to be in better trim than Wilkes. Yeah, he seems to be a lot surer-footed coming out of these sweeping turns.
Richard Wilkes has been a survivor so far, because I mean many people have overtaken him from the start of the race, but many who did, they have also crashed in front of him, and he's still there.
He's also survived some spins, so...
Yes, in several laps with those guys crawling all over his rear wing, so...
Other people...
His tires might be a little bit frayed at this point.
I would think so. It'll be interesting to see if Janik, who's as new to AMS as everybody else is here, at least the newest people. This is only his second race in it. So he's going to be, every race so far is a learning experience for him.
I believe in the case of Richard Wilkes, it's actually the opposite with the tires. I mean, maybe his car has some damage in suspension, and that explains that he's going slower. But I think regarding the tires, he's simply managing them. He prefers to be sure that towards the end of the race he can fight or defend positions well, because he's the physics creator of the mod, and he knows very well the effect that the degradation has on the tires. I haven't seen him smoking the tires in any of the corners or anything like that. So if his pace is abnormally slow, then I believe it's down to damage.
Yeah, it probably, I would tend to agree. Because thinking back now, looking at it, I don't really recall him doing that. I think it's more a case of the contact he's had. But having said that, watching this, this isn't really a battle yet, but watching these two circulate, the gap is really relatively constant. It's not going up, it's not going down. They're kind of holding station right now, so... but Janik must be really thrilled with this situation, because I talked to him before the race, and he was doubtful he would even finish. And here he is, 2 positions out of the points. So I'm sure he's thinking right now, I want to advance my position here, but there's a long way to go, and people will probably drop out, so I don't want to do anything stupid.
It also helps if he wasn't out for drinks with you last night.
No, I've offered that in the past, but he's not been available. The last time I saw Janik was in January at the Designers Night party in downtown Detroit. He was there along with Trevor Green and a few other people. That's a party that the designers have every year during the auto show. And much merriment was had by all. Lots of stories exchanged about the business and sim racing. So Trevor's brother Tyler was also there, so you had 4 HSO people in attendance total, I believe, in that party.
Well, let's hope that we see them also in Indianapolis this year.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we can have both the Greenies run Indy, or at least one of them.
I want to give a minor call out here.
Go for it.
Our 26th and last place starter is now up to 13th position, Jason Fitch.
Fitchy. And there he is, and he's driving a brand new March 711. So he's actually driving the best equipment that Frank Williams has at his disposal right now. Decked out in a blue paint job. Yeah, he's looking good. He's 2 laps down, but if attrition continues at the clip it's at, he could be looking at a top 10 finish. Nice.
Well, we have a say here in Spain that goes more or less like sit down and wait until you see the body of your enemy go by. So I think that's also if you want revenge, okay, that's what they say. So I think that's also the case for Jason Fitz, because with a big attrition in this race, just doing some steady driving guarantees you getting almost a top 10.
Well, I think it's a smart drive by Jason as well, because I think he'd be the first to admit that this is not his forte, this type of racing. And he's taking it very smooth. He's not doing anything wild or crazy. And in the end, he will, if things go well, he not only will have a decent finish, but he'll have gained a lot of valuable experience. It's hard to gain experience in races like this when you're on the sidelines after a lap 1 or 2 incident. And he's gaining a lot of experience right now just by circulating like this, and I'm sure it'll increase his chances for good results in future races, because he'll have a book of experience to draw upon.
I've also noticed as our front runners have come around and caught up to him, he's also been driving very responsibly in his mirrors.
Well, that's another mark of a really good driver. I mean,
yes, he's staying well out of the way of leader battles and faster cars. I mean, the man knows his limitations, and he's playing to those.
Well, hopefully he'll be rewarded with a really good finish by the time this is over. But we still have quite a long ways to go. We're only on lap 33 now of 75.
So Brian is now getting a bit closer to Richard Wilkes, probably starting to study him a bit and see where there might be any weakness in Richard Wilkes' driving.
Yes. Now, yeah, he is definitely getting closer now. Fastest lap of the race just turned by Richard Coxon, 1 minute 25.813. So that doesn't put a huge dent in the lead that his teammate has, but at least we know that Richard's not just laying back. Yeah,
I
this.
think that Richard has been managing the tires all this time.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure about it. He probably sees Grant going quicker, and he probably realizes that Grant could eventually go like that in the lead till the checkered flag. But I think that Richard is wise enough to know that he is pushing the car to the point that he believes is right for the tires, and whatever Grant does, he's not going to do anything else than follow his own plan.
And just as we mentioned Grant, I'm looking at him on Live Racers, and there's a fire trail coming out the back of his number 1 dot as it goes around the track. So he apparently is on a very, very fast lap.
Well, he's such a competitive guy. I think if he's racing alone, then he races himself. He starts sooner or later going for the quicker lap.
Yes, Grant Rudall just did a personal best just then for this
It's
session.
also probably his way of telling Richard Coxon that he also has something up his sleeve.
I'm sure that they're both driving with something in reserve. Go ahead, Scott. Sorry.
I was watching Grant during qualifying, and to watch outside his car, it was very Senna-esque. It was an absolute thrash around the track from outside the car. But then I hopped in his cockpit, and the steering wheel was moving so very little that actually the sliding in, I mean, you could see understeer powered through with to an oversteer, and from outside the car it just looked absolutely frantic, and inside the car the wheel was as calm as could be. So it was, which tells me he was running right to his line and knew exactly what the car was going to do, and he wasn't chasing it in the least.
Yeah, that's the mark of the greatest drivers, and a scene where you could see it very well was Grand Prix Legends, because there the cars also move a lot, and the best drivers like Martin Audran or Guillaume Sibert from our own HSO league, those guys, you were watching them and they were moving the steering wheel also very little. I mean, they were constantly driving with accelerator and brake. They were able to turn the car almost completely with that.
Sorry, we just had a slight. There was just a slight issue there with Brian. He had an incident that almost looked similar to what his teammate was dealing with before, where you try to get under power and the nose of the car goes for the Armco on the inside of the corner. But he luckily was able to save it without too much loss of time. He's still reasonably close to Richard Wilkes.
That's, however, an indicator that Brian probably doesn't have that much up his sleeve, and if he's able to close to Richard Wilkes, then there's probably not enough there to make the overtaking maneuver. Maybe he has just to wait for an error from Ricardo.
Another driver who's on the move right now is Steve Parker. A green light just flashed up on my board, so he's having an excellent sector right now. So maybe with the fuel going down in that BRM, he's now getting to a point where the weight distribution of the car is ideal for some quick laps. We'll see.
Oh, and one other thing I had noticed about Grant, I've really been noticing the cars in the hairpin and how Grant would come in and looking at Wilkes, right where Wilkes is now, Grant was hard on the gas. And just I'm sure with the wheel and just the amount he had his foot in it, he was much quicker coming out of there than by far anybody else.
Well, look at.
It also has to do with the setup.
Well,
each driver will set up the car according to whatever parts of the track he thinks give him the advantage.
Well, looking at him coming out of the hairpins just now, Scott is right. He does manage to get the power down a lot better than most of the people we've seen. I know what his secret is. It's the blue windscreen. That's got to be it. I knew those blue windscreens were for something.
He just made a slide there that was a bit frightening to see the car and the steering against the wall.
Yeah, but I don't see the wheel moving very much. I mean, it's just, I don't see, it doesn't come across as very reactionary driving. It seems like he just knows He's got a clear idea of what the car is capable of, and he just seems rather calm doing it. Doesn't seem particularly, although the engine is screaming at the same time.
Whoa, with Wilks now had a big slide there. He's starting to get pressure from... he's probably overtaking right now Jason Fitch. He has lapped him, but he was feeling some pressure from Brian Jennings. He's certainly not comfortable in the car today. You can see that.
No, he clearly isn't. As Fitch well, there you go. There's what we were just talking about. He doesn't want to get in the way of any of the battles, and he lets them by. But I think Alberto's correct though that Janik, for his part, doesn't have anything left in hand, or doesn't have anything. He's just basically keeping pace with Wilks. I think if he could do more, he would.
So now Grant is coming into lots of traffic. The drivers are moving away.
Yeah, this is
it's always a dangerous situation there.
Yeah, it's never as cut and dried as you would like, and on a circuit like this, it's certainly not. You don't want to get into a situation where you're committed to go through on one side, and the driver doesn't realize that and gives you room on the other side. We've seen incidents in real Formula One that not only didn't work, but proved fatal in some instances, just because of miscommunication.
Yeah.
And
big lock there into the corner, unlike Richard Hodgson, who's much smoother. So tire-wise, I'm betting that Richard has much better tires at this point. Grant.
Well, it's going to get... So here it comes Grant now up to the back of... oh, goodness. And, of course, right on cue, as he's coming up to these guys, they're back ensnared in a battle. He couldn't catch them when they were cooled off, could he? He has to catch them when they're actually in competition with each other.
Now, I have a question for you guys. Is it my picture, or does it look as though Grant's car has a horrible push on entry that he has to shake loose with the throttle?
I've seen it already. I've commented it. He understeered very badly into the corner, and that's very likely a setup thing. Grant has very probably gone here for traction above anything else, and then he's understeering there for so much in the corner.
And he's doing a masterful job of, actually overcoming the understeer with the throttle.
Yeah, but that's in line with what you said before, that he was able to power out of the corner of that hairpin better than anyone. That's consistent with the idea of the car being set for understeer.
Yes.
That's what is allowing him to do that. Like I said, it's very likely a matter of driver preference.
So now he's between these two cars, and it doesn't appear that there's going to be any issue. A gap's opened up here, and whoa. I think Wilks slowed up a little more than Grant was expecting there, but no harm, no foul. So now the battle between Wilks and Janik can resume.
I think Grant was a bit impatient there. Wilks was going to let him on the inside. He clearly had not moved the car and was hoping him to move for the inside. But Grant, I don't know, there was a bit of misunderstanding.
Well, I mean, we've talked about this before, and Grant is a very hard-charging driver, and he's certainly got a lot of time in hand here. It's a situation of, normally you'd want to just throttle back just a tiny bit, but Grant's one of these drivers that really drives at only one speed, and that's fast. So if fatigue sets in, or if a miscommunication happens, this race is not over yet. We got 30 laps to go.
Well, I'll throw back to Alberto again. I mean, with that kind of understeer going into the corners, how does he keep the front tires on it?
Well, his front tires are certainly taking a much bigger beating because they are constantly sliding on the corners. And you can see that in his driving. If you picture his car from close, you see that the tires are clearly pointing way more to the inside than the rear ones are doing.
Okay, guys, get the popcorn ready because Janik is now really close to Richard Wilkes. He's after they got lapped by the leader, now it's a situation where he might be in a position to strike. Although, as I say that, now he's making a liar out of me. Wilkes is now streaking away. All right, never mind.
And look, just behind them, another call-out. Mick Chapman, only a lap down, running 11th.
Yeah, Chapman, I think we mentioned before, you know, he hasn't driven AMS before. And he picked up this car kind of at the last minute. But he's a quick study, and he's doing well in 11th place. Oh, this may be the chance that Janik is looking for because Wilkes looked very unstable through those turns. He might have a chance to do an overtake after the rise here at the hairpin. Liftoff, boom, down again.
I wouldn't do it there.
No.
Nobody's had good luck there.
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of overtaking there. It's just, you know, some people unfortunately have also gotten it wrong.
I think Janik's, like you said, Wilkes is very unstable through the third sector.
Yeah, the third sector is where he's not comfy. So, oh my goodness, was that a? I'm guessing that was a ping issue.
Yeah, lag.
Yeah, that was lag. That wasn't someone actually driving off the circuit.
But you saw that too.
Yeah, yeah, that was ping. But here he is again. You can see actually not only the third sector, but I'd say in the second sector here, Wilkes has got a problem.
I think that's what Brian's doing, is setting him up to be close here.
He may be doing a classic Coxon thing where he's just like he's setting him up, trying to make him think he's going to go one way or another so that he can deal him a dummy and then overtake him in another way that he was not expecting. I've seen that happen a lot.
Or just forcing him into an error.
Or forcing him into an error. That's the other thing. But Janik is as I've said, he's a guy I know personally. He's a student of Formula One history. He knows this sport very well, and I'm sure that the wheels are turning inside that head of his. He's thinking, okay, what's the best way to get by him here? Because he can see the number 7, which is his position, matching his car. And he knows that if he gets by him, he's got one championship point on the board. So after this turn here, this is where they really start to run together, the two of them, through this section. This section and the next is where Wilkes is very vulnerable. And they got a couple of cars that are coming up on here that I believe are back markers. So that could figure into this situation.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
That might be another thing he's sitting back waiting on.
Timing overtaking with back markers involved is an art form in itself.
Yeah.
Grant Riddall just put up the fastest lap of the race at 125.522. So he's not leaving anything on the table.
Yeah, he probably thinks that he will be losing concentration if he goes down in his rhythm.
Yeah, it's true. If you change your rhythm or if you think for a minute about, oh, gee, I wonder what's on Cinemax this evening, next thing you know, you're in big trouble.
Because it's only the chosen ones that usually won the races. People don't realize how hard it is to be driving alone there in the front and having to keep your concentration. I mean, it's so much easier when you have an aim in front of you, when there is a car that you're chasing. But when you're driving alone, then it's a battle against your own mind tricks, the tricks that the mind is playing on you. It's very hard to do.
Yeah. That can happen. So this battle seems to have cooled off a little bit now between Wilkes and Janik. Looking through the timing here, that is the closest battle that's on the track.
Yeah, cars are very much spread all over the track right now. And I think that people are seeing how many have left the game already and are trying to be quite careful.
Yeah. Oh, Martin Lucena is out of the race.
Yeah, I just saw that Richard Wilkes is back to points paying position, and I thought, what happened here? That's Martin Lucena gone.
Well,
That's what I just was thinking a minute ago. He had been 7th. When Jason mentioned that Brian Janik was...
So we missed that at some point, but he's man, that's too bad for. Janik gets sideways. Can't do that many more times and maintain 7th place. He's got to watch it. His nearest pursuer is David Yunt, and he's 21 seconds back from him. So it's not like he's in imminent danger, but he's got to be very careful to not do that again.
Yes, he's got 16 seconds to give, so I do like his line through that combination right there. That is beautiful.
It's very smooth driving. And with these cars, this pays off a lot. I mean, Jackie Stewart has been saying it so many times that it's smoothness what rewards the driving with this car especially. And you can see that very well now because the physics are well done. And that means that you have to take care of the car, and you have to take into account that it's a thing that is moving over a rather soft suspension with very big tires. So it's very easy to start doing uncontrolled movements and get the car out of shape.
Well, I got some bad news regarding one of Scott's shoutouts. Jason Fitch is out of the race with 39 laps complete. Apparently, some kind of an incident on course, but he's in the pits right now. Parked at an angle, which means the car is out of the race, unfortunately. So that adds to retirements of Lucena and Remen, Wattman, Yareb, Ray Radal, Gerard Rion, Jonathan Asserklin. So we knew this.
Who just left because Brian Janik just moved into a points-paying position?
Steve Parker.
Parker?
Oh.
Yes, Parker's out of the race. What happened? Was it a disco?
I called him a dark horse. That's what happened.
My goodness.
Call out a driver, and there's the curse of the commentator right there.
Yeah. So it seems.
Well, whatever it was, it happened a while back because I don't see the result. But yeah, he's definitely out of the race. That's really unfortunate for BRM because he was their top running driver. Goodness, that's not good. So that does elevate Peter Hlavik to 4th place. Richard Wilkes is now 5th, and Brian Janik in the points in 6th. So I mean, this is turning out to be
right now lapped by Richard Coxon.
Okay, this is another battle that I was interested in and thinking about is Mick Chapman versus Philippe Martinelli. This is a battle for 9th place. And these two are going at it. Philippe driving Francois Sever's Tyrrell. And they got David Yunt behind them. That's not a pass for position. David's just going by. But I've been watching this battle out of the corner of my eye as far as the timing goes, and looked as if it was getting more interesting. We'll see if Mick can make any headway eventually here. The gap between Janik and Richard Wilkes has gone back to about 5 seconds. So post Steve Parker retirement, we'll see if that comes down at all. Yeah, this gap now is about 2 seconds. So this is the running order right now, the number of cars left. There are 12 cars left in the race. Well, actually 11 now with the departure of Steve Parker. Grant Riddall leads by 10 seconds, or 11 seconds almost, over his teammate Richard Coxon. Third place is Jakob Fredriksson. Fourth, Peter Hlavik. Fifth, Richard Wilkes. Sixth is Brian Janik. Seventh, David Yunt. Eighth, Dana Schurer, after that incident that she had with Jonathan. Ninth is Fleet Martinelli. 10th is Mick Chapman. 11th still is Steve Parker, but eventually he'll be overtaken by 12th place David Saber, who is 5 laps down. Those are the cars that are running at this point.
Many accidents.
Yeah, well,
many cars bent. The good news is no spectators hurt.
Yes, that's the one nice thing about sim racing is nobody gets hurt. Unless you're one of these clowns that games for 18 hours straight and then has an eyeball embolism. As long as you're not one of those goofs, you're fine.
Hey, wait a minute.
We can do one day 24 hours of Le Mans, and
Yeah, but even then you've got breaks.
we should be getting,
Yeah. All right, so real quickly, while we've got a moment here, let's go over to the answer for the trivia. Refreshing the question, in 1975, which team principal, out of concern for safety, personally checked Armco bolts on the Montjuic circuit? Was it A, Colin Chapman, B, Ken Tyrrell, or C, Don Nichols? Alberto, what do you think?
I recall having seen a picture of that in
Yes.
black and white, but I don't know who it was. I would say Ken Tyrrell simply because I guess Jackie Stewart would be all over the place.
Guilt by association. Jonathan, what do you think?
By default, I would say the same, but since Alberto already said that, I'll go with Nichols.
All right. Shadow team principal. And Scott, he knows the answer, so he's forbidden from giving it away, but here is the answer. The answer is B, Ken Tyrrell, and there's a photograph of him checking the bolts.
So it would have been because of got complete blackout. The driver I'm representing in the car. Stewart.
Yes.
Jackie Stewart plus Francois Sever was killed by Armco Watkins.
Yeah, that would have been fresh in their memory. That was a very scandalous race, actually, the 75 Spanish Grand Prix. It was the last Spanish Grand Prix run on this circuit. The drivers decided that they were not happy about the state of the safety of the circuit, and they threatened to not run the race. The problem with that, though, is that everybody back in those days, the team transporters and all the cars and everything were housed in a bullfighting arena not far away, I believe. And it would have been a simple matter to lock that arena and impound the cars. So basically, they didn't really have many. They didn't really have a recourse. They had to race. So I think it was Emerson Fittipaldi did one lap, and then pulled in protest. It didn't finish the race. Rolf Stommelin led for a great deal of the race, but then had a rear wing failure on the long straight, I believe, and it pitched him into the crowd, and the Armco gave way, and that unfortunately killed some people. The race was halted before it got to its end, and Jochen Mass was rewarded with his only Grand Prix win under circumstances I'm sure were not what he wanted. But that was the last time that they ran in at Montjuic. Alberto, you spent a lot of time in Barcelona. You've probably walked this track.
Yes, I did. I lived there for almost 1 year, and indeed we went to the mountain at Montjuic. It's a beautiful landscape there. Barcelona is actually probably one of the prettiest cities in Spain, especially after the Olympiads in 1992, where the city was renewed. And yeah, I mean, it was certainly very impressive to see those winding roads and thinking that they were going that full throttle on one of these 70s Grand Prix cars. It was very impressive. I suppose that for you it's the same when you were in Monaco.
Yeah, standing at the station hairpin and thinking about all the talent that had come through there, thinking about Nuvolari and Fangio and Senna and Villeneuve and just all the people that had come through the spot that I was standing on. It was a bit hard to process, to be honest.
Yeah, there's always those historic places where so many things have happened, and when you are there, you feel the weight of history.
Yeah, it's palpable. So Janik is staying with Richard Wilkes while we've been talking, and it hasn't, that the gap is still about a second.
Ooh. Fredrickson just really wide going through the Sector 3 sweepers.
Let's have a look. Fredrickson, champion of the 88 kart series, driving Ronnie Peterson's March this year. I don't know, he looks pretty smooth here.
Just that last lap, that's the first I...
Oh, here it is. Yeah, he's definitely letting it drift in that corner in particular.
It's quite interesting because although Jakob is also a Swede and is also a very competitive driver, I think that in the case of Ronnie Peterson, it would have been probably Greg Wasson closer to how Ronnie drove.
Probably.
Jakob is much smoother. He's a very calculating driver.
Well, to be fair, Ronnie was smooth. It was just that he drove it on the rear compared to many of the compatriots who drove it on the understeer.
Just as you guys said that, he just had a. I think we have empirical evidence now that the commentator curse is real. Scott was mentioning that earlier, and Jakob just had a moment where the back end broke loose and he almost nosed into the wall. So.
Well, here he goes through the sweeper again, and he's not nearly as out of shape now as he was the last lap.
Well, I think after that incident, he was just like on pins and needles for a second, but these guys are going to have to watch it because the cars will be absolutely spent coming down to the end of the race here. We got less than 20 laps to go, and they're not going to be able to let it all hang out in certain situations. I guess the fact that they're strung out is kind of a saving grace at this time, because if they were close together, they'd be prone to making mistakes. Or at least more prone than they would be if they were running alone. And while I'm saying that, Coxon is now on the move. He's starting to put in a really good Sector 2 in the last lap, so I don't know if he's trying to mount a charge. I guess, you know, with the amount of time that's left in the gap that's there, if you're going to do anything, the time would be now.
And Mick Chapman is also much closer to Philip Martinelli now. I've been watching them, and he has been able to close, and then he lost a bit of the gap, but now he seems to be on a more steady rhythm closing.
Philip just did a big pullover to let Jakob by down in the corner after the hairpin, second hairpin.
So you're saying that's accounting for him closing so rapidly, perhaps?
I would guess that's what it was, because he pulled clear off on the outside of the track in that right-hand hairpin.
Well, we'll see what happens here, because these two have similar power. I believe the Tyrrell's got the Spec 11 version of the Ford, whereas I believe Mick has got Series 10 coming into the hairpin here.
They've been doing similar lap times, low 129s in the last laps, but in the case of Philippe Martinelli, who did 1.32 in the same lap where Mick did 1.31, so that's probably the difference, the second that Mick has been able to reduce on him.
All right, well, we'll keep our eye on that and see what happens.
Well, Mick is 6 laps wiser with these cars, and he's got another 19 to go, and he will still be learning, so I would not put it past him.
Oh, and we have now some reactions in the forum.
Oh boy.
In the case of Steve Parker, oh, that's really, really bad luck. Again, sadly, very bad luck for him. He was running in 4th and well clear of 5th when the game lagged really badly and froze.
Oh no.
That's what happened to him. 47 laps for nothing. Poor Steve. Yeah.
That's
Awful.
awful.
Every time someone left, it lagged and made me crash twice as well. Yeah, that's something that we have been observing. I mean, when people come out and go off the server, it causes a lag on many of the other drivers that are there.
Well, I've noticed with the game myself that it's very picky when it comes to graphics settings. You have to go into your NVIDIA card or whatever card you have and make sure that you have settings a specific way. The next major race that I take part in on AMS will be Indianapolis, and I got to say, I'm not satisfied with the way that my card is set up. I'm going to have to really dig into the settings and try to find something that works well, because I can't have the thing stutter stepping on me when I'm coming down for a 3-wide start.
Yeah,
So
200 mph.
yes.
Stutter is not going to
No,
be
it's not going to
fun.
be good, so I need to tinker with it a little bit more. But I think, we're all getting used to this platform, admins and drivers alike. But considering, the teething problems that you're going to have, I mean, the reaction after the South African Grand Prix was almost unanimously positive. And we'll see what it is after this race, but we've certainly seen a lot of great action, which is a tribute to Richard Wilkes' work on the physics in these cars. Don't be fooled by the fact that, I mean, you've seen these cars before in other guises in R-Factor, but just because it's the same cars model-wise does not mean that they're behaving the same. These are unique physics created specifically for this series.
Oh, not at all. I was telling, before we started the broadcast, I was telling Alberto that I had previously run an F171 series with the same selection of tracks, actually the same track, in R-Factor, with the mod that was there. And while I'm not in the series, I've driven the cars just to see what things are like, and these are just absolutely night and day compared to the others. The others were good. These are phenomenal.
Well, the question I would have is, was the version that you were driving, Scott, a league version or a historic version?
Well, that was a league version.
Well, there you go. A league version is going to try to have all the cars run the same, so that it's really just, you're just picking cars based on what you like visually. You really have, there's nothing else to go on.
Right.
And so clearly, from a standpoint of historical accuracy, this would be ahead of that. But
Well, I mean, just in general, the way each specific car would drive, these are a lot of fun. The correction factor in the wheel, I mean, snap of the wrist and you can pull the car back in, snap of the toe and shake it loose and pull it back in. Those other versions, yes, I understand what you said. They were generic, but and they were fun also, but just the way Richard has done this is just off the charts. He's outdone himself yet again.
the other thing that I'm glad about with bringing this to AMS is we've essentially opened a door for us to do a bunch of other things in this platform. So, not that we are desperate to leave R-Factor behind, but it will open up a lot of opportunities for us going forward.
Yes. I would be, I thoroughly await the first HSO cut at a sports car series in these. And if Indianapolis is going this way, I am dying to try that.
Okay, I've just been informed that Janik is now, we missed it, but Janik is now in front of Richard Wilkes. Apparently this happened a few laps ago. So my guess is that Wilkes probably had an incident of some kind, because Janik was far enough behind that he wouldn't have just suddenly picked up on him.
Yeah, I'm watching the lap times, and one lap ago, not this one. This one, Richard just made 1:27, but the previous one is almost 1:36. That's a very big difference. That clearly points to any kind of incident, and that's likely when Brian was able to overtake him.
Yeah, the gap has now opened up considerably. It's now about 4 seconds. And meanwhile, the gap at the front of the field really hasn't changed too much. It's still hovering between 15 and 17 seconds. So if Richard's trying to close on Grant, it's not working thus far. 61 laps will be complete this time by for Grant. So we're entering the closing stages of the race. Historically, this race was run in the morning, I believe, so that with the idea that the spectators could attend the bullfights in the afternoon, I believe.
That's correct.
Yeah. So that has to be, that's kind of an oddity with this particular race, is that the race is run in the morning. And Janik is just...
What a double header for the day. A Formula One race, and then a bullfight.
That is a pretty full day. And knowing the Spaniards, I'm sure it didn't end after the bullfight. I'm sure there was like dinner and then going out late in the evening. So I'm sure.
Well, of course, there's dinner after that.
Yeah,
so
I know.
I don't think that we go to bed without eating anything.
No, of course not. So.
You know, like Alberto said, just sit there and wait for the body of your enemy to go by.
Yeah.
In any case, I mean, for the fun fact.
Oh, wait.
Bullfighting is right now forbidden in Barcelona.
No.
They don't have that anymore. It's a matter of the nationalist government they have there. They didn't want anything that smelled Spanish. So they banned this, also taking benefit of all the movement that had been in favor of the animal rights and all that.
It's a new day.
Yes, it is.
All right. Well.
I know what they did after the bullfights. According to Hemingway, anyway, you had a Formula One race, you had a bullfight, and then they went mountain climbing.
Mountain climbing.
Ernest Hemingway once said there are only three sports.
I think in the case of Hemingway, what he did was go for a bottle.
Probably true.
That's true. But Hemingway said the only three sports are auto racing, bullfighting, and mountain climbing. The rest are all just games.
Probably. Though he had a very romantic vision of everything, including of us Spaniards. Oh, Richard Wilkes just spun. He glanced the wall.
Oh, no.
Fortunately, he has been able to recover, but I clearly bet that his car is damaged already.
So is this another one of these low-speed incidents?
Yeah, it was a rather slow corner. His backhand stepped too much, and the front was moved against the armco because he was also so close to it. It happened at the apex.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's a typical accident or incident that people have had up to this point, where they get into a corner, try to apply the power, and the back end just comes around, and it's one of those low-speed spins. But yeah, you're right. He caught it very quickly, and he didn't really lose much time. He's sitting on.
I'm watching him how he's showing us the steering wheel, and that car is clearly damaged. He's constantly having to compensate for that, and extra careful at the changes in direction at high speed.
Yeah.
It must be very painful because
it's
like fighting with one arm tied on the back, having to go the whole race with a car that is A-handling.
Yeah, he just took a big bite of the wheel and the sweeper to stay going pointed straight. Yeah, he's having to be very gingerly. Or drive gingerly.
Nick Chapman is again close to Philippe Martinelli. Trying to put. Oh! I know. I thought he had glanced the wall there, but it's because of my point of
Yeah,
view.
he is. He's gained a considerable amount in the last lap or so. When Grant comes by the start-finish line this time, his Surtees team will be holding out both hands wide open with fingers spread. 10 laps to go. Yeah, Mick is a big lockup there from Martinelli. So Mick can smell the blood in the water. He's thinking, okay, at some point here he's going to make a mistake, and I got to be there to pounce.
Urick has also damage in the car.
Yeah.
You can see the nose is bent, so that's also likely not making his life any easier. Probably he's having also to compensate a lot for the ill-handling car. That makes it so very uncomfortable. Oh, look at that. Look at that.
Oh, man.
Yeah, he's having to really work on that steering wheel, and there is horrible on the steer for him also.
By comparison, Mick seems like he's in a lot better of a situation.
But the gap is coming down in a big way.
Yes, it is. So with 10 laps to go, the running order, Grant Riddall leads. Oh, goodness, Richard Coxon has dropped to third place. What happened? What happened? He had a pit stop. That's what happened. Richard took a pit stop. He must have needed new tires.
Damage?
Or,
Maybe
well,
maybe he miscalculated the fuel.
maybe he miscalculated the fuel. Who knows? But definitely it was a pit stop. My goodness.
That will hurt.
Yeah. The question is it going to put him in close contact? Well, not really with Peter. He's got Peter Hlavic's 20 seconds back, but effectively, and Jacob Fredrickson is 30 seconds back from the lead. So that gives added insurance to Grant Riddall.
I think that Richard is right now 10 seconds behind Jacob Fredrickson. But I don't think that he has enough time to get that back in 10 laps, in 9 laps.
Well, I'm looking
He
at
has fresh tires.
I'm looking at 7 seconds right now. It depends on where they are on the track. But I don't know. Richard may be able to run Fredrickson down. We'll see.
We can get back to Mick Chapman and Philippe Martinelli meanwhile, because that's they are certain.
Oh no!
What happened?
Commentator course. That's what happened.
What happened?
Mick Chapman just half looped it out of the second hairpin for third combination and dropped way off. He's 6 seconds back now.
Well, here's the replay.
Probably a bit too eager with the gas coming out of the corner.
Well, that's what's been biting people the whole day. Is you get too? Yep, there it is. Just you get on the gas too soon, too much too soon, and the back end just says, "Hey, I want to be up where the action is in the front."
Alberto did it. I didn't say that one.
Commentator course.
All right. All right. Well, Peter Hlavik now is closing in on Richard Coxon for third place. So it's not so much a question of can Richard run down Jakob Fredrickson. It's a question of can he maintain his podium finish now. And we've seen the fight that Peter's been able to put up. Oh my goodness, he goes wide and I'm sorry, hang on a minute. I've committed the crime of misidentifying cars.
He hadn't he sold.
Now, and Hlavik loses it in the second hairpin, but he's got back by now. But the
That
difference
car is
between
really total.
something's going on with Coxon's car because the timing and scoring has stopped. He on his car. He's running third, but I don't have any active timing showing for his car. He's still circulating, but I can't tell where he is timing-wise between where he is and the car that's nearest to him.
I'm looking at. I've got Lovich in fourth.
Yeah, Hlavich is in fourth.
25 ahead, and Yannick's 30 behind.
Well, according to the timing in game, he's right behind Fredriksson at the moment, or should be.
Well, he is. All right. Well, we have visual evidence of that, so we'll go with that. So this is.
He has caught up with him. He's putting pressure.
He
on him
has.
for the second place.
Yeah, there's a timing issue right now with. Yeah, he is. I can see it now. He's.
Oh, good Lord. If he just made a pit stop and has fresh rubber, Fredriksson's a goner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And another Spanish say that has to do with bullfighting. They say till the end, till the very end of the last hair of the tail, everything is bull. No, that's a say that happened when one of the bullfighters made the usual pass so that the bull could get by, okay? But when the bull was by and he thought he was safe, the tail hit him in the eye.
Oh,
So you see, till the very end of the tail, it's still a bull.
Yep.
And we use that.
Oh, here it comes! Oh, there comes Coxon. Runs wide.
Well, that was so close to a repeat.
oh, did you see the move he had to make going over the jump?
Yeah, that was incredibly close and skill only.
I think that Coxon's life went in front of his eyes there.
No, but you're right, Jonathan. That was almost a repeat of what we've seen in that corner. Pete and repeat were walking down the street. Definitely a could have been a replay of a lot of stuff we've seen there. But here he is coming up now, and they've got a lapped car in front. Another March.
It's Dana.
It's Dana. So I'm having a hard time telling Dana's car apart from Jakob's at a distance because they both have blue helmets, and unless you're looking for the yellow bill, it can be difficult. Here they go by now. Dana makes the room.
It's out of the way.
Yeah. Dana having a decent run today in 8th place.
Coxon with a run.
Oh, he glances the wall.
That's likely the effect of the slipstream.
It could have
He
been,
was
yes.
too close at that point. He lost downforce there.
It's
I don't
also
think that
down
his
to the
car in
racing.
other situation would have lost there.
It's also down to the racing groove. Even early in the race, it was right inside that yellow line, and both of them were outside with that yellow line.
Well, that provides a slight reprieve for Fredriksson. The question is now, did Coxon incur any damage?
I think he must have had some damage, yes. Let's
Oh,
see.
the way he hit, he had to.
He
But-
had to, but not
Well,
the
he's-
biggest damage.
It's closing back up again. Only 5 laps to go now.
I should say anyway that Jakob Fredriksson is probably one of the worst guys that you want to have in front, trying to put some pressure on him. Because he's very steady and he very rarely bows to pressure.
Well, there's still plenty of time for it to be a Surtees 1-2 again, but we'll see.
Well, this is going to hurt in Richard's championship fight. Because if he was able to hold on to second, then he would be matched with Grant at the top of the table. But in third position, that's no longer the case.
It's true.
There's still
Note that
time.
Richard took it a lot easier that time around. Sorry, go ahead.
No, we'll have to.
Sorry.
Coming- Takes an outside line into the hairpin. largely, I'm sure, to get better purchase.
Yeah, he wanted a better exit there.
Yep.
Ooh, mid-shift. Was that Fredrickson?
Oh!
There you go.
There goes Fredrickson.
No!
The admin course again.
The admin curse. We did it again.
Oh no, you got to be kidding me.
All right, we're looking at a replay of this. So here, at the previous corner, he had a really good launch. But then, and there's that over rev that you guys mentioned. But yeah, Fredrickson. Oh, and yeah, he lost his wheel. He's out of the race. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
From a driver's point of view, that was all because he ran wide in the right part. I think his rear may have gotten loose right before he went to third or something like that, because he was wide there and then he ended up wide going through the little left kink on that straight, which is not really a straight. That's why he went straight through in the head. Of course, he didn't have time to stop car because he was all over the place.
So
And Peter Lavak with the year-old McLaren, and after all that he has experienced in the race, is now in third position.
he's looking at a podium finish in the McLaren. That would be a fantastic result if he's able. Well, I'm not. Okay, we're not going to say anything.
Unless the broadcaster course strikes again.
Maybe we should start using reverse psychology. This likely will not result in a third place for him. There most likely will be an.
No way.
And that promotes Brian Janik to fourth place. Wilkes is apparently stuck in fifth place for the rest of his life. Sixth is David Yunt, a guy that we didn't hear much from in the first race, and we didn't hear a whole lot from in this race, but here he is, very patiently moving his way up the order, driving the number 35 Joe Sifford Automobiles car. And he doesn't get any improvement from this car over the course of the series. It's the same car the whole time. So he's making the very most he can out of what he's got.
Okay, before we get right down to the very end, I've got to ask Alberto.
Yeah.
What exactly does that Jackie Stewart banner say back there on the back side of the course?
The Jackie Stewart banner?
He's referring to the one that's like just before the turn where the restaurant is.
No idea.
Hang on.
Not seeing it.
I've wondered the same thing myself.
Looks like in terms of Jacobs, he had flat spots, and that's what ultimately caused him to go off the track.
Well, that was, I mean, after all that work, it's really unfortunate. We are now into the final lap of the race. Grant Riddall looking at his first win of this series. And this, with Richard Coxon finishing, assuming he finishes in second, that would put them even in points. I believe they would both have 15 points apiece. 9 plus 6 equals 15.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think Coxon's pretty much on a cool down lap right now.
Yeah.
His car is ailing badly.
So 9 cars only now on the track.
Yeah, it's true. We're down to 9 cars. Grant Riddall, Coxon, Peter Hlavik, Brian Janik, Richard Wilkes, David Yunt, Dana Schurer elevated to 7th there, Philippe Martinelli, and Mick Chapman. Dana finishing in 7th. Maybe poetic justice for Jonathan.
I feel really disappointed because looking at the pace and those who have retired, I would probably have been able to finish at least 4th there. So,
well, it's a long series, and there's lots of more races to go. Here comes Grant Riddall through the last series of turns up to the start-finish line. He does his little weave back and forth. Grant Riddall wins the Spanish Grand Prix. driving for the Surtees team. Excellent result. Led most of the way. We're waiting now for his teammate, Richard Coxon, to come through.
Just entering Sector 3.
Yes, he's now coming through. And Coxon, it turns out that pit stop that he made didn't cost him second place after all. It's too bad, though, that it ended the way it did, because we could have been treated to a real battle at the end there between Fredriksson and Coxon, but we were not. There's second place. Third place, Peter Hlavek.
It's the irony for Jacob Fredriksson, because Richard Coxon's pit stop didn't cost Richard the second place, but it certainly did cost Jacob the third one. I don't think that he would have crashed.
That's a good point.
Not being involved in a fight.
Yeah, the pressure might have gotten to him, in addition to having flat spots.
They need to go quicker with those flat spots.
So there's the third place for Peter. Fourth place, Brian Janik, a guy who was doubtful that he would finish this race. Very self-deprecating when I tried to give him encouragement earlier in the week. And here he is, bringing the lobster claw home in the points.
Detroit Flash.
Yes. Ain't no party like a Detroit party.
L.I. O'Brien.
Good man. Comes across the line, takes the fourth place. Not sure why he's going through the pits.
And I think Mick
Maybe
Chapman's
too tired
car
to do another lap.
is the only car that has crossed the finish line without at least evident damage.
Wilkes
All the
finishing in
rest are
fifth.
well beaten.
And David Yunt in sixth. My goodness. Well, that was a thrilling race. And now we're going to move to post-race interviews. And our first man into the green room is Mikael Janik. We'll drag him in here.
User was moved to your channel.
Mikael,
Hello.
how are you doing, sir?
At the seaside.
Good, bad, indifferent?
The car was well, but the shifting up is very bad here.
Yeah.
And in other sims there is problem to shift down with when you must press clutch correctly, and there I 3 times lift off throttle completely, but third gear wasn't here at all, so I lost at the start too much time, and then was held by Juha Boss.
Did you find that the car suffered in terms of handling in the slower portions, and then you had the advantage on the straight? I mean, that's what it appeared.
No, finally the car was good drive in all parts. I found finally that I must brake only in the straight line, and I speed up a lot today from 127 to 126, and in the race I was many times hit from behind from Greg Goasen, for example. I think this is not the way how to race these cars. Maybe 6 times I was hit from behind, and it is hard not to enter in the Armco then, because the back is lift, and after 5th hit my one tire was vibrating from this hit, so I drive 10 laps with vibrating car before the internet made me stop.
You gentlemen have any questions for Mikhail? No?
No, I think he described it very well.
Yes, he did. All right, here comes David
User
Yunt.
was moved to your channel.
David Yunt.
Hello.
Sixth place for you in Joe Sifford Automobiles. Another situation where you just rose to the top as other people had issues. How'd your race go overall?
Yeah, it was very tough, to be honest. Overtaking with this car is not really happening. I mean, in the technical parts was probably good, but on the straights, most engines are probably better than mine. But waiting game was perfect, could say. Was so close behind Juha when he got a tank slapper. I saw him coming to the right, so I had nothing to do except just to go flat out and see that sadly Jason White had got head to head with him. That was a bit of a shame that the fight ended like that. In the end, I just tried to maintain pace. But although I had one spin at the second hairpin, which Grant probably was a bit surprised to find me there. After that, I kept going. Then I noticed near the end that Richard Wilkes was kind of losing pace, and I was closing up. Without my spin, I would have been right behind him. But on my last lap, I spun again at the first hairpin, and that battle was over. Not to mention, I was too nervous, didn't brake right, even though I had less pressure, so I had flat spots. And in the end, I should probably be very happy with sixth, since I wouldn't have caught Wilkes like that. But it was a fun race, to be honest.
Well, I think it bodes well for Monaco because that's a similar circuit, not as quick, but definitely similar in terms of confines. And for the drivers who have their racecraft in order, i.e. you and some other guys like Fredrickson, I think it's another chance for you guys to score points and do well. So good to see you improve on one position from the previous race.
Yeah. Although Monaco has that very fast chicane, although that could mean that some people might get it wrong and then end up in the harbor or something. But yeah, I'm hoping with a bit less of good material that I can lap well around that track. But to be honest, you don't seem to have too bad luck. I mean, the 30s cars look really fine, so maybe next time Monaco will suit maybe that old March a bit, but we'll see.
So we go to the next race. The next race is Monaco, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
User joined your channel.
So Alberto, we were talking about what the next round will be. The next round is Monaco. So and as you've mentioned before, the race is not it's not as quick as this one, but it does have some similarities in terms of geography. We had another Surtees 1-2 here, but do you think that Monaco could be the equalizer that we were thinking this race would be?
If we take the Surtees as favorites, the broadcaster course will be the equalizer.
It's true. It's true. What about you, Scott? What do you think?
I think I don't know. I'll go with Alberto. It's those guys put in so much work on those cars. I mean, it's just evident. I don't know that, but you can just see the way Grant drives the car and the way Richard drives the car. I mean, they're spending time in the seat.
Yeah,
that's the big plus, because they don't have the top engine, and by all indications, I mean, if you look back at history, the Tyrrells were supposed to be just spanking these cars. And these guys are pulling them through to the front. 2 races in a row.
Yeah, I agree with Scott. I think it's down to preparation for those guys. So, you know, there are other people.
Forget that the other teams will be getting upgrades over the
true.
year, whereas the Surtees won't. When they are at the TS9, as both top drivers are driving now, that's everything there was in 71 for them.
All right. Well, no one else in the green room at this time, so we'll call it an evening here. I want to thank very much my broadcast partners, Alberto Ibañez and Scott Urick. Thanks so much, both of you, for not only your additional pair of eyes, but your comments and your analysis. Very, very helpful to put on a good show for everybody. I hope everyone's enjoyed the broadcast, you guys included.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you for
certainly
having
did.
me.
Thanks
Yeah.
for having us. Yeah.
All right, so for Scott Urick, Jonathan Asserclinth, Alberto Ibañez, and David Yunt, and Mikael Yannick, this is Jason White saying so long from Montjuic Park in Spain. We'll see you at Monaco.